Welcome to r/ProRevenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with ProRevenge after being wronged. Thank you for the likes and subscribing. It motivates me to make more good content. And today's first story is, a potential client tried to take advantage of me, and I got her fired from her big shot marketing job. A little bit of backstory. I'm running a painting business over the summer as a junior in college to pay for school. My prices are pretty fair, as I hire college students and have a deal with Sherwin-Williams as a contractor to get cheaper paints and materials. Anyways, a potential client, we'll call her PC for pretentious C, scheduled an estimate with me about a month and a half ago for an interior bathroom job and deck stain. I tell her the times I'm available, but she absolutely pushes for a time where I would have to rush over from a job site, do a hurried estimate, then run home to grab a bite of dinner before going to previously scheduled estimates. I'm a bit miffed, but I said F it. Sales is hard. I should learn how to bend over backwards for clients. So I show up to do the estimate, and the whole time I'm getting my numbers together, she is talking me down, telling me how if she ran a business like I did, she would be fired from her big shot marketing job immediately, and how I should be dressed better to respect the client. What I did to offend Her Majesty was I moved her plans to the side to be able to measure the deck better, and I came to the estimate in paint-stained clothes since I had run over directly from the job site. So I presented the price of about $800 with a 10% day of estimate discount to book up the season, and she says she needs a few days to consider it. Okay, fair enough, right? I'll extend the discount a few days for her. So I come back a few days later expecting a yes or no answer, and she sits me down and starts to haggle with me. At this point, I'm tired enough already from working in the sun all day and just want some food to stop the rumblies. After I give her another 5% discount just to close the job, she continues to haggle with me saying, the highest we can go is $600. When I finally tell her I can't go any lower on the job, or I would actually lose money on it, she tells me that she got an estimate from another local company for $500, and that she wouldn't want me to match it because she wants to support the local community. At this point, I'm exhausted, and my brain is barely keeping me breathing, but that price point doesn't sound right to me. I calculated my price based off a small profit, labor, and materials. Now, I pay my painters $13 an hour, and I hire college students. So if the other company is charging way less, they either pay their career painters even less, minimum wage where I am is $11, or the quality of paint is much lower. So I ask PC if they remember what paint the other company said they would use, and she says she doesn't recall. Fair enough. Paint names are hard to remember if you don't see them that often. Then I ask if I could see their estimate contract, to try to figure out why they were so much cheaper than I was. PC says that they didn't have an estimate sheet. Now, this is a big no-no in any contracting business because you have to keep track of numbers, budgeted hours, etc. Now alarm bells are ringing in my head, so I set a firm amount on the price of the previous estimate with the additional 5% discount, which means that I make a measly $5 per hour I personally work on the job. PC finally agrees on the price, saying, it's just $50. I can't see why you can't just give us more discount. At my big shot marketing job, I would give the customer a discount without hesitation. Forgetting that A, the discount would be coming out of my broke college students' pockets, not a big corporation, and B, I already told her that I would only be getting about $5 per hour on the job, even though she wants to support the local community. She asks if we take credit, but there's a 5% credit card fee that would come out of my already tiny slice of profit, so I ask for check, which I told her we prefer during the original estimate. She tells me that she uses Chase, which doesn't have a branch near us, and that the nearest one is in New York. We're about half an hour from Boston. What? Therefore, she cannot use check because she would have to order the checkbook from New York. I think, alright, fine. I guess some people these days don't have a checkbook. I reiterate that I will lose money on the job at that price point with the 5% fee tacked on and that I can wait until the checkbook arrives. So I tell her that she can message or call me when the checkbook arrives and I can drive back to collect the deposit and have her sign the contract. On the way out, she tells me that the job needs to be finished before a certain date because she was having guests over. I explained to her that when I receive the deposit, I'll lock her in for a power wash of the deck, which will need about a week to dry. Then we can stain it in one day. She mutters something, I can find the checkbook by tomorrow. Come on now, she just admitted to lying to me about having to order a checkbook from New York. So I say that's fine. Let me know tomorrow afternoon so I can come by and finalize the contract. When I get home, I decide to search up Chase branches near me on Google because I found it really strange that there wasn't one closer than New York, especially since we were pretty close to Boston. I kid you not, there was a Chase branch 14 minutes from her house. Now I'm peeved. I don't know what else she lied to me about, so I call up my friend whose dad owns the company she talked about. He calls me later that day and says that he never did an estimate with her name or address. I send her a message over Facebook Messenger. I do a lot of posts in local yard sale groups for exposure for my company, so I set up estimates through Messenger. and called her out about the Chase branch, the check, and the estimate from the other painting company. She goes off. Here are a few memorable quotes from her rant. "You don't have the right to insult me like that. This is just your first year running a business, and I've been working at big shot marketing job for years now. It doesn't matter what I pay you because you're young, and money doesn't matter to you right now. My Facebook post says that I'm literally running this business to pay for college. And my personal favorite, you people should be grateful that I even pay you $5 an hour for your work. I'm Chinese." At this point, I'm ready to just block her and go to bed angry, but I have an epiphany and just hear big shot marketing job echo through my head. I take screenshots of the messages she sent me and slap them along with a lengthy description of what happened in an email and sent copies to whatever email addresses I could find associated with the big shot marketing company. I get an email back a couple days later from a different address than the ones I wrote to previously, basically saying thank you for reaching out to us. This type of behavior is unacceptable, and we will be conducting an internal investigation into PC. My Justice Bee is about half-mast, but I think to myself, that'll be the last of it, I guess. Just today, I was messaging another old client and came across PC's conversation with me. I go to her profile, and in the intro for her profile, it now says, "Works at self-employed. Instant full mast." The second story is the day I won the lottery. My wife and I like to play harmless pranks on each other. Things like swapping all the photos in photo frames or playing around with clocks, etc., etc. All mild stuff. Once I convinced her she had won the lottery with the old record last week's lottery and play it back having bought the winning ticket prank. After the initial excitement, and before she tried to contact anyone, I revealed the prank, and she didn't take it well. In fact, she got quite upset. It took a few hours before we both could have a good laugh about it. Or so I thought. Anyways, a few years later, I was serving at sea as an officer on board a warship. We were deployed, and had been for several months at this point. The routine was fairly dull, but the ship's company were keeping themselves entertained for the most part. The ship's chaplain, also known as the Bish, had commandeered the internal radio broadcast system and set up a schedule where members of the ship's company could DJ for a bit, or have a discussion, host quizzes, etc., etc. The Bish's favorite bit was his message from home segment, where he would read messages sent to the ship from the families back home. As you can imagine, the majority would be insipid stuff like, "Hey Smithy, me and the kids miss you so much. Can't wait for you to get home, XXX. Families would email the message, and the Bish would read it out, exactly as written. Anyway, on this fateful day, I was on watch in the ops room. For those who don't know, the operations room, CIC in US parlance, is quiet and busy, and everyone is focused, especially in an operational environment, which is what we were in. After being in there for a few hours, I needed a leg stretch and a drink, so I let the team know that I was popping out for 2 minutes and headed into the wardrobe to grab a cold can of Diet Coke and come straight back. As I opened the door and stepped in, a massive cheer erupted. There were about 10 other officers in the wardroom, all cheering and looking at me. What's going on, guys? Didn't you hear the Bish on the ship's radio? No, I was in the ops room on watch, like you lot should be. Go see him, now, now! What? Why? You have an important message, you're gonna want to hear it. So I left the wardroom, aware that around half a dozen of the other officers were following me, and made my way to the compartment the Bish did his broadcasts in. As I walked through the ship, one sailor yelled out, "Nice one, sir," and another, "How much? How much?" I was very, very confused. I stepped into the compartment, and the Bish was mid-flow reading someone's message. As soon as he finished, he looked at me, a huge smile breaking across his face. "Here he is, the man of the moment. What have you got to say, OP?" "About what, Bish? I have no idea what's going on." "So you didn't hear your message? Shall I read it again, listeners?" I realized that he was still broadcasting throughout the ship. A muffled "yeah" could be heard. He did a little fake cough and proceeded to read the message. "Dear OP, I'll get straight to the point. We have won a life-changing amount of money on the lottery. Please call me as soon as possible. Lots of love, Snugglepuss, the Sausage Monkeys, Blockhead, and Pestcat." I was utterly confused. The message would have been sent to the Bish around a week ago, and my wife had made no mention of it in the daily emails or phone calls I'd had with her. It was also odd that she'd sign off using our silly little family nicknames. Snugglepuss equals wife, Sausage Monkeys equals kids, Blockhead equals dog, Pestcat equals, well, the cat. This was not normal for her on any level. Something was off. The excitement in the compartment was electric. Everyone was slapping me on the back and shaking my hand. I managed to leave, saying something like, "There's a phone call I need to make," and retreated to my cabin. On the way there, I bumped into the XO, second in command, who enthusiastically shook my hand. "How much? How much? You lucky, lucky bee." "I don't know. I haven't talked to her yet." "Call her. I need to know if we have to put special measures in place." A little worried about what that would mean. Turns out the Navy has procedures for sailors who come into a lot of money unexpectedly in order to protect them. Who knew? I dashed away. Okay, I'll let you know. Finally in my cabin, I checked my watch for the time back home and called my wife. Hello? Hey you. Apparently we've won a life-changing amount of money. A muffled giggle. It's a prank, isn't it? Yes, we won 10 pounds. Got you. Not really. I knew the message was odd as soon as I heard it. More laughter. OP, you don't understand. The prank is just beginning. You'll see. And in that moment, I understood the genius of what my wife had done. I was due to stay on board this ship for another 2 months. She had just told the entire ship's company that I was a lottery winner. Everyone knew that I'd won a life-changing amount of money. It started reasonably enough. Pretty much everyone wanted to congratulate me, shake my hand, and talk about what I was going to do with the money. I would try denying that I'd won anything, and then I'd get an "of course you haven't," wink wink, or in at least one case, getting outright hostile with me for trying to lie. After a couple days of congratulations came the beggars. From slips of paper under my cabin door to people on board I barely knew taking me to one side, telling me their life story, and asking to either borrow or have money from me. Any attempts to convince them I hadn't won a lot of money were met with either, "I understand, I wouldn't hand out money either," or were just plain nasty. As much as I tried to tell everyone I hadn't won the lottery, it took a lot to convince some people. Even 2 months later, in my last week on board, I was still being asked by some what I was going to do with the money and whether it was enough to leave the Navy and retire. Even now, years later, I receive the odd text from someone who heard about my win asking for money. And the last story is, they tore up my grandfather's garden. He tore up their car. My dad told me this story a few years back. My grandfather lived in a really rural area in Georgia. This was around the late 1930s, early 1940. My grandfather owned a farm and had a garden. He had planted various veggies. Well, the only neighbors were about a mile away, and for some reason the neighbors would drive their Model T through the garden, tearing up the veggies. My grandpa would have to replant the garden. The neighbors kept doing this. So here comes the revenge part. My grandfather dug holes around the garden and stuck metal poles into the holes. He covered up the holes with leaves. A few days later, the neighbors drove through again. My dad said they tore the undercarriage out and had parts strewn all over the place. He couldn't remember what happened after that, but I don't think they did that again. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.